So picture this. You are sitting in jail for murder, murder that many people believe you may not have committed. And that jury is still out. But still, you're sitting there. But it's not even jail, it's prison. It's solitary confinement in prison, is where you are at. And you have this defense counsel that comes up with these amazing, fantastical theories and stories about why you are innocent and why you will be exonerated. And then everybody kind of raises an eyebrow. And then suddenly the defense that brought you this idea is gone. They walk
Yeah.
away from the case. Joining me to discuss, Bob Motta, defense attorney and host of the Defense Diaries podcast. Bob, I mean, when this came out, yeah, talk about a shocking twist. Can you give us any insight from a legal perspective as to what actually went down here in the Delphi murder case in Richard Allen?
Yeah, I was there. I was sitting in the courtroom
Oh my goodness, yeah.
and yeah, so I had gotten down there and it was a 2 o'clock hearing. It's pouring rain. There's usually a line to get in. When I got over to the courthouse, and this wasn't held in Carroll County. This was actually up in Allen County, which happens to be Judge Gull's hometown county. That's where she's sits on the bench. Much, much bigger county, beautiful courthouse. So there's no line. I walk in, guy's like, "Oh yeah, there's already about 100 people up." And I'm like, "What?"
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm concerned that I'm not going to get in the courtroom because the judge had put on an order that said that they have about 90-person capacity. So uh turns out that guy was screwing with me. I got up there was about 50 people.
Hmm.
And they let us into the courtroom about 1 o'clock. And from the minute I get in there, I can sense that something's off because I see Baldwin racing around back in chambers. So when you're sitting, and it's a very large courtroom, beautiful, beautiful courtroom. Frankly, one of the more beautiful courtrooms I've ever been in. Um, and I see Rosie back there, and I don't see McClelland, but I know he's back there. And I can just see people running around,
Hmm.
and it's not unusual. Like in cases like this, major cases, it's par for the course to have, uh, what they call pretrial conferences back in chambers where it's off the record. It's not out in the well of the courtroom. And it's more frank, it's more candid, it's a little more casual in terms of what's being discussed. And I happen to be sitting right behind Kathy Allen and Richard's mother, like literally right behind them. And as soon as Kathy sat down, she was crying. Like, and it's like I've seen her cry when she sees Richard when they bring him in typically.
Sure.
But as far as I know, she had not seen Richard at all
Hmm.
and she was crying.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, what's going on? And remember, this date on 10/19 was not previously set. It was kind of set out of the blue by the judge a few days prior to the actual hearing date, because there was a set date of October 31st, Halloween, and then she wrote an order that was very vague in terms of what they were going to be doing. She says, "Okay, well, we're going to come in and we're going to talk about what we're going to be doing on the 31st at that hearing." And then another issue has arisen, and we're going to discuss that as well at this hearing. So, and I'm sure that as you've heard, last week, the news broke that there had been a leak, okay, of the crime scene photos, and that leak was supposed to have come out through um, the defense attorney's office, so Andrew Baldwin's office. Now, allegedly, he had somebody that was a friend or somebody that he considered to be a friend who had access to the office. And apparently, this guy was either photocopying or taking photographs of crime scene photos, maybe other pieces of evidence as well. And it then turns out that this guy then leaked it to a couple other people, and then those couple other people leaked it to other people, and so kind of the story surfaced when the Murder Sheet podcast did an episode talking about the leaks, and I hadn't seen any of the photographs. I don't know anybody personally aside from Kevin and Aine that have, or Anye, I always mispronounce her name. That have seen the photos.
Yeah.
I mean, any time that you have evidence that is under a protective order slip out, it's an issue. And it's an issue if it's coming out of the defense attorney's office. And it seemed to be, and just so people have an understanding, Baldwin and Rosie were both appointed, but they're both private attorneys. They have their own practices. They don't practice in the same office. They don't even practice in the same town.
Mhm.
They're two separate attorneys with two separate practices that were both appointed to the case. All of this, in terms of the allegations of the leak, are related to Baldwin. I've heard nothing as to Rosie at all. Like Rosie was not mentioned on anything. So at some point uh during this, that's just some background. All right, so we go
Yeah.
in not really knowing what's going on. We're all out there speculating. I'm out there with Barbara McDonald. We're all trying to figure out what it's going to be, what's happening, and then we get into the courtroom. We're sitting in there. I see the running around, frenetic. I've handled cases like this. I know what is going on back in chambers. I know that there's some serious discussions going on. The rumor was that Baldwin was going to get disqualified or removed from the case. I was like, no way. I'm like, unless they have proof that it was intentional, I mean, like it's a huge move because it's not as simple as saying, "Oh, you broke the rule, you're off the case,"
Yeah.
because you have to balance it against Richard Allen's Sixth Amendment right to counsel,
Yeah.
which is going to outweigh most things. The defendant's rights, constitutional rights, are typically going to outweigh court rules or protective orders and things of that nature. It's not to say that Baldwin couldn't have been sanctioned or punished in some way, shape, or form, but pulling him off the case when at this point he's he's Richard Allen's attorney of choice, as you noted. I mean,
Yeah.
a year's gone by. These guys were fighting like hell. They were crafting these motions. No matter what you think of it, the bottom line is you can't disagree that they were fighting like hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so like that's unequivocal. So you have to know that Richard Allen, when he starts hearing rumors that his lawyers are going to be removed from the case, has to be devastated. And I know that because I'm sitting right behind his wife who's weeping
Mhm.
through the entire hour she's sitting in front of me. She clearly was privy. At some point they called her, I'd say about 1:30. They bring Kathy back into chambers. They're probably discussing what's going on with her, trying to warn her that it looks like Richard's not going to have Baldwin at the very least. So, in about 1:50, this is where it gets interesting. About 8 or 9 law enforcement guys walk in, including Tony Liggett, who's the sheriff who, in the Franks hearing, is the one who's supposed to have allegedly lied to the judge to get the warrant.
Mhm.
And then you've got Doug Carter, who's the head guy for Indiana State Police, and who's basically running the whole investigation. And these guys all sit in the jury box in the well of the courtroom,
Okay.
like real intimidating, like
Yeah.
so they bring in all these cops, and at some point, and they're sitting there for a half hour, and I'm like, man, can only be one of two things is going on. One, because we knew that they were doing it broke that they were going to do an investigation into the leak to try to dig up some stuff. So it could have only been that they're going to go to hearing on the removal of Baldwin, or that she's going to have a hearing on the preliminary finding for the Franks hearing,
Mhm.
both of which would have required some law enforcement. I thought it was way too many cops to be there for the Franks hearing because it's basically Liggett that they're accusing of lying.
Yeah.
So, like we're just sitting there wondering. And 2 o'clock comes, and that's when the hearing's supposed to start. 2 o'clock goes. We're rolling to about 2:30, 2:25, Rosie walks out, walks directly up to Kathy and says, he's like, it looks frenetic. He's like, all right, hey, come with me. Come to the like, and he takes both Kathy and Richard's mom out of the courtroom. And I'm like, wow, man, what is going on? I'm like, are they dismissing the charges against Alan? I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out like this whole time, having like actual experience, like knowing what goes on back there,
sure.
that there's a lot of things happen that aren't in the well of the courtroom, that are on the record but not in open court. And I'm just like, man, like I don't know. So 2 minutes later, Richard's mom comes in and grabs both their sweaters that they had left on the seat in front of us. And I'm like, wow, they're not coming back. I'm like, I don't know what this means. 5 minutes later, Judge Gull comes out, takes the bench, and she says, oh, well, sorry for the delay. There's been a lot of things going on here. And we just had something very unexpected happen this afternoon. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, so uh, as of this afternoon, both of Richard Allen's attorneys have withdrawn from the case, and I've allowed them to withdraw from the case. And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
Yeah, my mind was blown. I did not know what was going on with that. I was like, what? Like it was one thing to think that Baldwin might go, which I thought was a stretch.
hmm
It was an entirely different thing to lose both of his lawyers.
yeah,
So, we're left there to speculate as to what may have gone on back there. And, my best guess is that essentially McLeland came in, told the judge, all right, the Indiana State Police did this. This is their investigation. This is what they found. Gull sat back there, and this all happens back in chambers, like kind of on the down low.
yeah,
And Gull says, like Andrew, like I think it's enough of a technical violation that I should remove you from the case. It's like this isn't the first leak. There's been multiple leaks.
yeah,
Filed that motion not under seal. I've got a problem with it.
yeah.
And frankly, I've got to get control of this trial again.
hmm
So what I'm going to do is give you the option. I'm going to give you the option to either go to hearing, which, as you know, I okayed cameras in the courtroom this one time, and we're going to air your dirty laundry in public. In which case, and I'm telling you right now, and again, this is me speculating,
Yeah,
but if I had to bet, I'd say that I'm spot on. And this is the conversation that she has. And she says, or, and in which case, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm inclined to DQ you from the case, to disqualify you
hmm
from the case, or I'll give you the opportunity to withdraw. It's like a Hobson's choice, meaning there is no real choice. It's like
yeah,
I'm not going to go out there, get pantsed,
hmm
in front of everybody, and that triggers an automatic mandatory referral to the disciplinary commission out there,
hmm
because that's the other side of it.
okay,
It's not, people call it the bar, but it's really the disciplinary commission. They're the ones who are essentially oversee all the attorneys. Like ours is called the ARDC in Illinois.
hmm
If people have complaints about their lawyers, that's where they go. And you
sure.
got to answer all of them.
hmm
And if it happens in a court of law, if you've been sanctioned or removed, it gets referred to them automatically, and it's all on the record. So it would have been, not only would he have been DQ'd from the case because Gold told him so, but then he's going to have to deal, which he still might have to.
hmm
He still might have to deal with the disciplinary committee out there, which could result in fines, suspension, or the biggest thing would be obviously disbarred. I don't
Yeah,
see that happening, but so at that point he's got no choice. So at least in my opinion, I think at that point he's then going to have to go to his partner on the case and say, "What are you going to do, man? Are you going to stay on? Or are you going to come? What are you going to do?" And that's the thing that I'm dying to know.
hmm
Like that is the thing. Like I want to know, because I don't think that she gave Rosie the same option because of what she said. She said Andrew Baldwin made an oral motion to withdraw, which I granted, and Brad Rosie is going to prepare a written motion and we'll be tendering it over the next few days.
Mhm.
It's a different. You could tell it's a different scenario. You know what I mean? So at that point, uh, like I'm blown away.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I mean, these are love them or hate, and I happen to think that they both think that he's innocent, actually innocent. So
Yeah.
you can imagine what that would feel like to be the family of Richard Allen, let alone the defendant himself. And it was evident from how Kathy was reacting.
Yeah.
Like the entire hearing, she knew it was coming. They all knew it was coming. And I have to be honest, man, I find the timing extremely convenient for the state with everything else that was going on. That was sure a good way to divert all the attention away from Liggett and the Franks motion and the Odinism. Now we're all talking about some leaked
Mhm.
photographs that no one saw, and in the meantime, Richard Allen's lost both of his attorneys and is sitting in jail, oh, I'm sorry, prison,
Prison. Yeah.
without an attorney.
Yeah.
And it's not going to like, he's not gonna have anybody until they and so the only things that the judge said this court date, which I drove 8 hours total for 5 minutes, was that, on the 31st, she's gonna appoint new counsel. He's still broke, still indigent, so he's gonna get more attorneys appointed to him. They will be, again, private counsel that are appointed because Carroll County's small. They don't have a big public defender's office, not somebody who could handle a case like this. So at that point, and it sounds like there's going to be some kind of hearing. I like for the families, it's devastating. I mean, the thing was never going to go on January 8th ever. It was
Sure.
never going to go to trial. But I mean, now you've got new lawyers are having to start from scratch.
And
You
where do
know,
they go from here on something like this? Obviously, the original attorneys walked down a pretty bizarre road with the whole Odinism thing. And maybe there is more to that. But if you're the new defense attorneys, do you have to continue going down that road with Richard Allen? Can you completely change up the theories here at this point uh, with it being brand new counsel?
yeah, you definitely are not beholden to predecessor counsel's motions
Sure.
now.
But do you want to? I guess is more the question. I know you can,
Well,
but do
yeah,
you want to
I
in this
mean,
case?
everyone wants to call it fantastical and, like it's crazy. It all came from the discovery.
Mhm.
No, I mean, they went so far as to say that it could have been a ritualistic sacrifice. I don't think that is the case. I think that it's evident that the four named people plus the two guards that are named in there all are Odinists.
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt.
Period. It's like I don't know why people are acting like it's so insane. It's
Yeah,
like that
but it's like
like I
you go down the roads a little bit and it's kinda stops because there's no
right.
real history of Odinists sacrificing people. Are there these Odinist guards? Yeah, pretty clear there are. There's
Yeah.
quite a few people in the area that subscribe to Odinism. So that part's not insane. It gets insane with how, and I don't want to say that because I don't believe it is insane. But when it goes to such extremes that so many, you start to lose people, and I think you could easily lose jurors as well with it just being on the surface very fantastical. I mean, is that the only defense that they can go with at this point when it's been put out there so strongly? Would it be very bizarre if they were to come back and have a whole different theory, nothing to do with Odinism, or maybe another version of this? Um, I found it, bizarre to begin with that they were going to go down that road, just because I feel like it makes him look more guilty than he does. Because I feel like he doesn't look very guilty until you start adding Odinism into this, and you start adding all these big stories. It starts to feel like a child who is making up a big lie to cover, something very small. Um,
Right, well, and it's not him making anything up.
no, no.
Like, he's sitting in a prison cell. I
Mhm.
mean, that like, again, people just don't seem to understand that everything that the defense brought up in that memo came directly from the state's discovery,
It did. Yeah,
period.
yeah.
All of it. Like, I mean, my only beef is not that they, brought up Odinism because it's relevant. It
Mhm.
is. I mean, these 4 guys that 3 cops continued to investigate that angle for months
Mhm.
after the unified command abandoned it, and, I don't know why they abandoned it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, like, new counsel's gonna come in and they're gonna look at the crime scene photos, and if we're to believe the defense, and again, everything is left to interpretation for both the state. That's what the law is about.
Mhm.
This isn't about cops are always right or the prosecutor's always right. It's not how it works. They have their interpretation because they're trying to get a conviction on a case. They look at the same evidence that the defense does. And if they're sitting there and whatever they want to say about whatever, for whatever reason, they wanted to take a left turn off that angle,
Mhm.
they thought enough of the sticks
Yeah.
to find somebody at Purdue to say, "Hey, these seem unusual to us. Are they anything?" And then go so far as to lie about it, like where he is.
Yeah.
It's weird, man.
No,
You
there
know, it's like people trying to like slough this off. Like I am so sick of people just blindly believing prosecutors and cops.
Mhm.
I'm like I've been doing this for 20 years in the system on the defense side of it. Don't.
Yeah.
They're wrong a lot
Sure.
and they never own up to it when they're wrong, you know? And it's like all we care if we care about justice for the girls, if all the people with their pitchforks and their torches sitting outside of Richard Allen's cell wanting this guy to go down, if you care about the girls, then what you should be doing is sitting out with pitchforks and forks outside of McClelland's office saying, investigate everybody.
Yeah.
We're not convinced it's Richard Allen
Mhm.
because what they have on Richard Allen is not sufficient to prove anything. I'm sorry, it's
No.
not
No.
an unspent casing. It's not a bullet that went through a gun that they've matched to Richard Allen. If that's what you think it is, you're wrong.
Mhm.
I'm talking to our listeners out there.
Yeah.
That's not what it is. It's something that was ejected. A bullet that did not, like a casing, a full intact casing was ejected. Like when they racked the gun, boop,
Mhm.
popped out. It didn't fire through a barrel
Yeah.
and it's for a 40 caliber weapon. They're not going to be able to definitively match it to Richard Allen's. Like I'm breaking news here. It's not going to be definitively matched to Richard Allen. They can't do it.
Sure.
It doesn't exist in science.
Mhm.
It's not accepted science in a court of law. It's not. It's worse than ballistics, which is like tool markings and you know striations on the bullets and like that is not even really accepted anymore. I
Yeah.
mean, like they're working on the technology to make that more reliable scientifically, and maybe they've been able to do that to some extent, but where it's been in the past is not enough to convict people on because
Mhm.
it's not reliable science. And this thing's way less. And then you've got a guy who made a voluntary statement
Yeah.
that he was on the tracks. Period. That's what you have against this guy. And you've got 4 witnesses that all describe a completely different looking person.
Mhm.
To me, you know, you're gonna put somebody to death on that? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Not in this country, you know? So, I
Where does
like,
Yeah.
they're gonna come on and they're gonna look at it all, Tony, and they're like, will they take that entire path on the Odinism? Like, I doubt it, but are they gonna abandon it altogether? No, because you can't.
Yeah.
You can't ignore it. You've got people making admissions. I mean, like people are really acting like this guy this guy EF will use his initials, like that he didn't just flat out tell 2 of his sisters that he was there the day that it happened.
Mhm.
Like, where's it? Like, so it's before there's news reports. And she went and took a polygraph that what she was saying was true, that
Mhm.
her brother had confessed that he was there and he spit on one of the girls. Theoretically, his DNA should be. I mean, like,
Yeah.
how are people just ignoring that? I like,
Why are these pieces not coming to light more and we're focusing over in these other areas?
yeah. So
What
we'll see how it
Yeah.
plays out.
I mean, for now, I mean, the Franks hearing was something that we were talking about. It looked like it was going to be coming to light at some point to identify if there was some wrongdoing by Liggett and some of the officers. Is that just all on hold indefinitely now until a new defense can get a grip
Yes,
on what's going on? So this could likely he's going to sit there until next year at some point
at
to even get
least
there. Yeah,
At least, and remember, the Franks motion is pending, and the motion for immediate transfer out of Westville Prison is still pending. Which, until the attorneys like that's not a rocket science type motion. I
yeah,
mean, new counsel, if they've been appointed, like the way this process goes, is goals like talking to lawyers. Okay, who can handle this case locally? Like going out a few counties somebody within, driving distance.
yeah.
And she's gonna say, "Who are they? Whether they're from Indy, whether I don't care where they're at, but I want competent lawyers on this thing.
Mhm.
I want lawyers that are gonna like if she puts in 2, like, punching bags, it's gonna be a problem,
Mhm.
because you can't go from 2 guys that were fighting like hell to two guys that are complete pushovers or gals, whatever the case may be, just two people that aren't doing the work and that are just letting this thing steamroll towards a railroaded, defendant getting convicted, and the girl's not getting justice because we'll never know, or that Richard Allen gets killed in prison because they're just leaving him in there.
Yeah, almost
I
say what
mean,
happens. Yeah. Is there more likelihood of a plea negotiation at this point, at some point, with everything that we know thus far and where it's been sitting? I don't know. The Elford plea is what came to mind earlier today, but I don't know. You would know that area far better than I if that's a road that one may go down, or even if they'd want to make a plea deal. If in fact he knows he's innocent, would he want to do that?
I mean, the only thing that the state could offer is life in prison.
Hmm.
And if Richard Allen didn't do it, why the hell is he pleading to anything?
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah.
Like these people talking about like Brett, my buddy from the prosecutors, keep talking about a plea deal. I'm like, why would this guy plead? Are you looking at different evidence that I'm looking at? Because that is not enough evidence to convict anybody. You
Yeah.
look at people like Rex Huerman and Koberger, people are like, that guy's guilty. Yeah, I mean, there's little pockets of humans out there that on Koberger, and look, everybody's presumed innocent. We all know that.
Hmm.
I'm a huge proponent of that. I'm always preaching that, and it's true. But in terms of just giving an objective opinion and reserving your final opinion, when I look at what they have on Koberger, he seems like he's the guy to me.
Sure.
Okay, and when same with Rex Huerman, he seems like he's the guy to me.
Hmm.
It seems like they have a lot of really good evidence against Rex Huerman.
Hmm.
That does not exist against Richard Allen. It
No.
just does not. People keep saying, "Oh, he's a bridge guy. He's a bridge." You don't know that he's a bridge guy. The guy's
Yeah.
5'4". This guy's like a little Laputian. Like I'm telling you, I've seen him in person multiple times. He's a very little guy,
Hmm.
and he does not look like bridge guy to me at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and you've got 2 composites that came out, completely different looking people. The whole case has been screwed up, and you know who's paying the price? Are the girls' families. They're the ones paying the price for this, and they're sitting there wondering because they're seeing and reading and hearing all the same things that we are. Like, I would love to know how confident they are that Richard Allen's the correct person.
Yeah.
Because look, families of victims put all their faith into prosecutors and law enforcement when they say that we got the right guy.
Hmm.
I mean, they have no choice but to. And when stuff like this starts happening, I mean, what must they be feeling? And look, the law is not kind to victims' families during the pendency of trials. The prosecutor is not keeping them up to date on the blow by blows. It's not how it works. Law enforcement is not calling them with updates. They're in the dark, like the
Hmm.
rest of us, hearing rumor and innuendo, and that's just a nightmare for them.
Yeah.
All they want is the right person or persons convicted for killing their girls,
Yeah.
period. And that's the only way that we get justice. And where I'm sitting right now, I am not at all convinced that it's Richard Allen, like not even a little bit. And the more that I hear about other individuals and what was going on, there's just something stinks in Delphi, and I don't know what it is, but I have every intention on trying to dig it up.
Hey, it's Tony Brueski. If you want more of our interview with our guests, be sure to check out our podcast, Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Just search that wherever you download podcasts and press subscribe. Also, you can check out our YouTube channel for the full video version of the interviews as well, under the same name, Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Check it out, subscribe, binge, and enjoy. Thanks for watching.